So in the previous Gemara, we talked about the difference between the Malach Mythical and Malach Gavriel, the angel Michael and the angel Gabriel. And we talked about how one flies faster than the other, or has more power than the other. The Gemara continues. Tana, it was taught, Michael ba'achas, Gavriel b'shtayim, Eliyahu ba'arba, u'malach hamoves b'shmona, u'v'shas hamagefa ba'achas. The angel Michael, Malach Michael, the angel Michael, flies in gets his job done in one flight. The Malach Gavriel, the angel Gabriel, gets his job done in two flights. Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, gets his job done in 4 flights. The angel of death gets his job done in 8 flights, but in a time of a pandemic, it's in 1 flight. So there's not much in the commentaries to explain what this means, but here's what I've come up with. The Malach Michael, the angel Michael, refers to God's hand, God's acting in the world in a manner of kindness. And the angel Gavriel refers to God's acting in the world in a manner of strict judgment. Now there's a difference between, so on the simple level, when we talk about the powers, we're talking about the powers granted by God to various forces in the world. And that on the simplest level, it says that God's greatest power is granted to those who act in kindness. And that God gives the most swiftness to those who act in kindness because there's no need to hesitate there. And we see that as it goes from kindness to strictness, and then of course the angel Eliyahu Hanavi, who is kind of the human being who already transcends to a certain degree the limits of humanity, but still doesn't have that same divine power that the angels have. And then certainly when it comes to the angel of death, God is very hesitant. The power that God invests to the angel of death is very limited, so that it should be slow and give people a chance to do teshuvah. However, unfortunately, in a time of pandemic, the angel of death is given free rein in a way that circumvents the normal, or supersedes the normal order of things. We talked about the 1 and the 2. And what's the source of the other numbers? I didn't see. I couldn't find the source. There was something, you know me already, I'm not great with numbers. So there were some sources that spoke a little bit about something to do with interpreting various texts, but I couldn't understand it properly. So this is one level of understanding. Another level of understanding is the nature of the action itself. What is the nature of kindness? Is God's giving, right? So this is a direct action. God is expressing himself, giving an angel, giving a force in this world the authority to act on God's behalf, and it's a fairly straightforward activity. Whereas when we go to the strict judgment is never, I wouldn't say never, but is generally not something that you want for its own sake. It's something that you want in order to achieve a larger purpose. Right? When we discipline, we're not disciplining because discipline is good. We're disciplining because the lesson which will be learned from the discipline, the character which will result from the discipline, is good. And that may be another way of understanding that Michael, the angel of kindness, is in one flight, but Gavriel, the angel of strict judgment, is in two flights because its effect is a secondary one. And this also could be a way of understanding how Eliyahu, Elijah the prophet, is in four flights. Because the ancient understood that that man is made up of four elements: earth, water, fire, and wind, or spirit. And whether, even though we've divided the elemental tables up differently today, nonetheless, these fundamental building blocks of creation are still in our experience. This is one, and so that's something that I did find in the sources. Another thing that also is certainly in Kabbalistic literature, there is the world is divided into four spiritual dimensions: the world of complete unity with God, the world of the spirit, the spiritual connection, which already has some kind of, that's called the world of Atzilus, is complete unity with God. The world of Beria, which is the world of in which the intellectual relationship with God is dominant, the spiritual experience. The world of Yetzirah, which is generally understood to mean the world of the emotional experience, which is a little bit more rooted in the human experience. And finally, the fourth world is the world of Asiya, the world of action, the world of the concrete, which is the world in which God's presence is most concealed. Right? And so the human exists in all four of the elements: earth, air, fire, water, and also moves. And certainly Eliyahu Hanavi, who has transcended the limitations of humanity, is able to go to the maximum to these four worlds. And this is his purpose. Again, we're talking about the purpose of Michael is realized in one direct action. The purpose of Gavriel, the angel of strict judgment, is recognized only in a two-step model. The human's action, even in the fullest sense, is recognized in a four-step model. That is, that we're supposed to influence and integrate and work through all of these four different dimensions of our experience in order to manifest an awareness of the presence of Hashem. And then we come to the angel of death being in 8. So the angel, there's some sources speak about the angel of death having his work done in 8 flights, as we said, which shows that everything is Hashem. God really hesitates. It's something that God is reluctant about. Death is something that God doesn't want, but yet employs. Remember, it's very important that in Jewish teaching, the angel of death is considered a tool of Hashem. It's not something that stands in opposition to God. Right? So we're all talking about ways in which Hashem, which God does his work in this world, but yet we're saying that there are some things that more directly, immediately, transparently reflect God's will, and other things that are much less transparently so. And therefore they don't reflect such a readiness. God, the way we speak of it is that God isn't so quick to try and do that. So the other sources speak about eight kingdoms which have enslaved the Jewish people, which have oppressed the Jewish people. Lamnatseach al Hashminis, King David prophesied about it as well, and that may be one another way of understanding it. That the angel of death in general refers to the idea of exile and the Jewish people's experience of oppression, of persecution, of the limitations of our experience, and that we have to go through all of these journeys in order to manifest God's will. Something occurred to me which I didn't see in any of the sources, so take it or leave it, which is that if we say that Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, the human being, so to speak, operates on a 4-step, so the angel of death is a back and forth of the human being. It's kind of it represents the full journey of the human being, that the person comes to life in four and then goes back and forth, or something along those lines. It represents, in a way, the circle of life and of resurrection, which might be alluded to in twice the number four, that the human being goes through the worlds of four and then goes back to heaven through those, and has to unpack those same four dimensions. That's a thought that occurred to me. Take it or leave it. Uvishas hamagefa ba'achas. This one is the hardest to understand. In a time of a pandemic, only one flight. And perhaps on a simple level, it's saying that God grants the kind of force to the angel of death that's normally not given to him, and death comes swifter, unexpected. The kinds of precautions that a person can normally take to protect their health during normal times are not so applicable in a time of pandemic. We have to go much further because death is much stronger. But on another level, I think it's hard to ignore the relationship between Malach Michael, the angel of kindness, and the Shas HaMagefa. And it's a reminder, I think, again, this is not something I saw in the sources, but so I'm saying that clear, that it's just my own thought, and it's up for discussion. It's a reminder, that the Magefa is divine power, and it's Hashem is behind everything, and it's just divine power that's normally given to the world of kindness is now given to the world, to the Malach HaMavis, to the angel of death. And perhaps also it's telling us that there really is something that's impossible for us to understand, a divine power that's so great and beyond our comprehension. The Malach Michael, the angel of kindness, is, the kind of miracles that we love. The Magefa, the pandemic, is also a miracle. But it's a miracle that we experience a lot of pain from. So let's not forget that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God is behind everything.